This conversation was a great privilege. I got to speak to Thomas Peruzzi and unwrap his tech leadership journey. He's an absolute legend in the European technology space as well as the advertisement industry. Thomas has had a fascinating, very rich career in experience, and he's somebody who's giving back to the community, inspiring the new generation of entrepreneurs, both through his work publicly and virtual minds, and through his private coaching and lecturing across various universities in Europe. We cover a lot of fascinating topics, one of them being the European ad tech excellence and how he is hopeful to maintain high ethics for the advertisement industry in the future. He discusses what does it take for a company like Virtual Minds to handle 200 billion plus API requests every single month. His leadership evolution, starting his career as a young man and all the way into his various roles as a CTO across massive companies in Europe, how the advertisement industry is using synthetic users and AI in order to improve their targeting and filtering of the ads, and finally, corporate responsibility and growth. He's a very optimistic guy. He's always got a positive outlook about the future of the European tech space and the future of young leaders and entrepreneurs in general. Unwrapped is a Baldur Connect podcast. Baldur Connect is a tech recruitment agency. If ever such a need arises in your company, feel free to reach out to us by email. And now, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Thomas Peruzzi.
Unwrapped Tech Leadership Journeys, Baldur Connect podcast.
So, welcome, Tom. I'm very excited to have you here today and speak to you again. And maybe just for the audience, could you give a brief introduction about yourself and about your background, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I'm Tom, officially Thomas Peruzzi. I'm an Austrian. I'm in the digital ad tech and media space now for more than around about 25 years already. And before joining the ad tech space, I studied technology, telecommunications technology, and later on I did my second master in innovation management for several reasons. I'm now working for the Virtual Minds Group as the speaker of the management board. So we're one of the European ad tech companies, or I would rather say we're one of the rare European real technology companies dealing with billions of requests day by day. And I'm not only the speaker there, I'm the CTO there as well. So I'm in the lucky position of handling billions of requests and taking care of them, even if they are super volatile. And that's what's somehow driving me. And that's what has mostly defined my career as a technology leader and where I'm coming from. So pretty say, starting with my studies in 1993, I'm a little bit a digital, naturally born digital guy. And I more or less always worked for digital-only companies. That's me.
And when we spoke last time, you mentioned you felt like you got a little bit lucky that it was at the right place at the right time when the technology boom was just kicking off, isn't it?
Yeah, because when the first ad was displayed in the internet, I was taking part of it as a student, and I was there then the whole internet evolved. Then when first offerings for shops and stuff like that popped up, and I had the honor and the possibility to join a company which was very well known at that time, namely CompuServe, and then being bought by AOL, and coming there in as an engineer. So I had the luxury of getting into an atmosphere of real knowledge and technology wisdom spread globally, and I was part of that team, and that was the time where when you're a young man, where you can learn like crazy, and I took my chance. So,
and it seems to have worked out well for you, obviously.
Yes, then when I started there, I remember that when the CompuServe HR, I think it was a lady, but honestly I don't know anymore. They said to me something like, you will not become rich. There are better offers out there for people like you. But what we can guarantee is that you will learn like crazy, and that we will do our very best to keep on educating you. And they delivered what they promised. So this was a 3-year ride with gaining access to more or less everyone who was in there. So everyone who has written a book at that time, I got the chance talking to them more or less, and I took the chance. Yes, I got some promotion as well, and I got the chance to jump into not only German but Austrian, Swiss, and then European or global projects, and I managed to act there as a systems engineer, and I learned a lot. Yes, they were better. They were guys. They left CompuServe and earned much more. But ultimately, I would say I'm still I'm still participating on everything I've learned during that time with regards to organizations, with regards to engineering culture, with regards to how to promote engineers, how to make sure that engineers can foster and grow not only for 3 years, but even for 10 or 15. So everything what defines a technology company and makes it a real technology leadership organization, I think most of it is still based on the fundament of what I learned during my CompuServe time.
And I definitely look forward to asking you a bunch of questions related to, what you learned or what advice you'd give to other people in that position. But let's just jump back for a second and talk about your current company, Virtual Minds. For somebody who's not familiar with Virtual Minds, could you just explain briefly what does the company do and what is your role within it? Could be, in general, what is your the overview role, or what is maybe some of the specific things that you do within the company?
It's what Virtual Minds is doing. I don't want to say it like that, but it's the easiest explanation is if you know what Google is doing with regards to advertisement, mainly they have a platform they can organize as your campaigns as an advertiser, and then try to find the fitting inventory, and then there's another software which orchestrates the inventory for publishers, and then there's an auction in between in order to manage the demand and the supply properly. We do exactly, I don't want to say we do exactly the same, we follow the same mechanisms, but what Virtual Minds is doing is we are really based on European ethical standards and on European legal standards. So we cannot do everything others can do for several reasons, and we don't want to. We aim for, so our purpose, and that's something we really try to live on a daily basis. It's excellence in edtech made in Europe. And in order to give you some numbers, as I said already, we serve around about 200 billion requests a month. That's a huge amount of time of requests, and it's super volatile requests, and it's super small portions of requests, and they come in, and you don't have a second to think about what you do with that request. And that's a little bit special to EdTech. I don't want to say the first one wins, but the quicker you are, the better is your chance to win in an auction. So you have to be good in algorithms, and you have to be good in speed, in coding, in delivering, in finding the right network infrastructures and stuff like that. And we have a bunch of really crazy people, and so we have our active agent, which is a DSP, and so the demand side program we have with Yield Lab and the Media Manager, a solution for the sell side. We were even the first ones globally being able to digitize linear TV advertisement and make it accessible in an auction system as well, in programmatic advertisement. And we have our DMP, our data management platform, where you can manage your marketing data, your publisher data in a European style, even with algorithms who do something similar to what others are doing, like lookalike modeling and stuff like that, but always with taking care on European laws. And then we really try to treat that as a very important value to us, and that ends up in stuff like we do only host data in data centers which are owned by European companies in order to that's a hierarchy of interesting decisions if you go towards that excellence in Europe thingy. But it's something we're really proud of, because we now deliver for more than 20 years on a very steady base, and is pretty small compared to the Googles of the earth, with 250 employees roundabout, or supporters as well. We managed to deliver that for the largest publishers and largest TV houses in mid-Europe. And that's what Virtual Minds is. It's a German company. It's owned by ProSieben, by the TV house. It was till 2018. It was managed by the founders itself. And I jumped in 2017, and as the technical lead only before, and then the intent was to support them. Then they left as a founder, because I did those transitions quite often in my interim CTO roles before. And somehow I got stuck there, and now with Virtual Minds for 6 years. And after 3 years, I was not only responsible for technology, there was then technology and product, and then it was technology, product, HR, and marketing. And at some point 3 years ago, I got asked that I want to become the speaker, the spokesperson of the Virtual Minds board as well. So currently I'm the speaker of the Virtual Minds group with my three colleagues, Ricardo, Dirk, and Timo, taking care on the whole organization. And especially I'm still the CTO, and I'm still acting in some industry bodies with regards to EdTech on the European level as well. And if I don't do that for Virtual Minds, I'm still lecturing on a few universities. I'm sitting in some juries, for example, for the Austrian States Prize of Digitization. But that's more, to keep the brain fresh, I would say. And it's super interesting to see what ideas pop up.
I have so many questions because there's so much in there to unpack. And we're definitely going to get into ethics because I know we spoke about this last time we talked. But anybody, especially who's involved in advertising, I've spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads in different roles in different companies. And you said that you guys build things from ground up with the ethics in mind, following a certain standard, which is something you're very proud of, as you should be. And in the advertising world, a lot of people have what they call the black hat strategies, right? So it's basically some unethical ways to potentially show content that shouldn't be shown. Could be content that's inappropriate, could be some graphic content, could be some products that are maybe in the gray market or borderline illegal, right? And marketers always kind of churn and burn through lots of different ad accounts, lots of different usernames, and they try to get their product shown because they know that those kinds of products sell, whether it's the skinny pills, whether it's some, pornographic content, whatever that is, they always seem to find a way around it. And you mentioned, obviously, you guys build things with ethics in mind. So how do you prevent those kinds of things from being shown in the content that you guys help advertise, basically?
That's why I somehow...
Or is that an issue at all?
Yeah, no, yes and no. With all those new trends like MFA, so the media for advertising websites and stuff like that, the advertising business, it's a multi-billion-dollar business year by year, and whenever you reach a multi-billion-dollar volume, there's always the interest for fraudulent behavior as well, because simply it's too much money, and if there's a if there's a 5% fraudulent behavior, then nobody may really care, but it's already 3 billion or stuff like that. So it's a huge amount of volume on the one hand side. It's a huge amount of dollars on the other hand side. So there's always the interest in to behave differently or to do things which you shouldn't do. What we did from the very early days on is we concentrated on premium. We concentrated on premium publishers as well on premium agencies and stuff like that. So that's more or less the first line of defense, is that we only treat premiums on both sides of the medal. The second thing is when you start working with premiums, they demand something very special from you. On the one hand side, premium agencies and premium advertisers demand a high level of brand safetiness and stuff. So you have to be prepared properly. The premium publishers demand you to bring in only demand which is really worth being shown on their website. So it's the other way around of thinking. I just want to see ads which are really worth being seen. I don't want to have any retention risk just because there's a wrong ad shown on my website. So that urged us from the early days on to have really very extensive regular, 20 years ago, it was a ton of regular expressions with blacklisting and whitelisting and all those things. And it became more and more sophisticated. And we will see with the help of machine learning now that that battle will continue. It's a never ending battle. But there's one thing, if you concentrate on what you can really manage and control, and not concentrate on draining out the ultimate revenue, you are on a pretty safe way to act more accurate and more in an ethical way, because then you more follow the quality rather than the dollar. But you have to be able to afford it, and you have to have customers who are willing to join that story and to join that way of thinking. And fortunately, we have those customers. So it's you can only build ethical behavior
basically,
if the market allows you to do so too. Sorry.
And having a high standard all across, basically what you guys do.
Yeah, and it's
And
I'm a technician, I'm an engineer too. And as an engineer, when I see all the possibilities out there with the help of maybe machine learning, maybe artificial, maybe enhanced statistical models, maybe some kind of psycho marketing models, stuff like that. There's a tremendous amount of possibilities out there which you could do to be a little bit more to be a little bit more trendy, or which you could do to drain out the last dollar. Is it always right doing so? No. So it's always a battle between the engineer and the corporate citizen.
Right. And I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned a number which is incomprehensible to the human brain, right? You said you guys process something like 200 billion requests at any given time. I mean, as humans, it's hard to imagine when we talk about space, when we talk about finance, and you have numbers that are like 10 to the power of 1,000. Like, it's incomprehensible, right? So I want to ask you, when things go wrong and you have this much information and this much on the line, and you're obviously a guy who's very high up in the organization, and people look up to you for answers, what does that look like? Is it complete chaos? Are there certain systems in place to mitigate risks? You could take it any way you want, whether it's from the technical side of things, or whether it's from the mental side of things and managing the team and managing all your employees. So what does that look like when things go wrong, or do they ever go wrong in your recent memory?
Things have to go wrong. I think Murphy, he always existed and he will ever exist. So all those Murphy rules, they
law,
apply
right?
to any kind of technology, and to ours too. And you can say, imagine an ad server. It was written. The first line of code was written more than 20 years ago. It was permanently refurbished, restructured, remanufactured, and stuff like that. But at the end, it's a 20-year-old living system, and it consists just to have that ad server who serves ads for a campaign, for a publisher. It's more than 200 services, and those services have to interact with each other, and all those services have to fulfill their certain function, or their certain functions, and that you have to log it, you have to report it, you have to measure it, you have to at the end you have to bill it correctly, and then that you have customers, and you cannot even send them an Excel sheet with 1 billion lines, just with all the ads being displayed or stuff like that. So you have to find ways to do that, so even so that your customer trusts you, that you behaved correctly. And then you have, in the auction world, if on the sell side, on the buy side, you have your publisher customer, then is your SSP, then there's a bunch of demand partners. They're all auctioning with you. And at the end, you have to measure it correctly, and it has to result in one bill, which is accepted by all. So there are always things going wrong, and what you have to do is you have to definitely know. On the one hand side, you have to know your numbers. You have to know that you treat it as requested and as written in your contract. And what you have to have too is you have to have an immense infrastructural measurement platform, and generally a service measurement platform, because ideally you know it before your customers know it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if something goes wrong, you have to have the ability to replay and stuff like that, because it's nothing really worse, really bad for us is, for example, it's a wrong report. It may sound a little bit funny, but wrong reports, they really affect our customers, because at the end, it's maybe not a publisher, it's a sales house, and the sales house has to then to divide correctly to all the associated publishers. So if something goes wrong on our side, it goes wrong on their side as well. So we have to treat that really carefully. So taking care on numbers and having really good measurements on that your numbers are correct, having a good measurement platform to always know what happens on the platform, and if there's some kind of tendency that something goes wrong, it's one of the fundamental one of our fundamental jobs. And the second thing is then having consistent data and taking care on the integrity. And we have, as I said, it's a bunch of super small data. And so even so, and then it's not, we're not like we're not a financial organization or stuff like that. But sometimes we have to treat our data like the same, especially if it's relevant for billing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of mechanisms with regards to data quality, data integrity and yeah, even we as an edtech company, we are currently aiming for becoming ISO 27K certified, simply because we have to have all those standards and procedures in place as well, and they have to be replicatable. If you think about some kind of CMI levels, at least we need the core processes need to be in a managed state, or ideally in an optimized state. And what we do too is we take care on our employees a lot in order to make sure that they behave accordingly. And so what we have done is we switched from a very hierarchical model to a more open model that the experts can really decide on their level rather than asking me.
And I definitely want to get into this as well, but it sounds to me like a lot of it is obviously preparation and thinking in advance what can go wrong and basically being ready for it. And on the same subject, I noticed a lot of people that I've spoken to, whether it's CEOs, CTOs, or in general, people I look up to, like successful entrepreneurs, leaders like yourself who reach such a high position and success and a level of responsibility in business, they're generally very clear thinkers. Some of them, they spend a lot of time alone, or they meditate, or whatever their own decision-making process is. So I'm curious, what are the areas in your role right now where you feel like your decision-making has a disproportionate impact on the company? Maybe it's the technical aspect, maybe it's dealing with the clients, maybe it's the hiring decision. So where do you find yourself having to take the time and really be clear and really investing a lot of effort and thought into making clear and good decisions?
Even if I would love, I would really love to be more in the tech decisions of the day, but simply I cannot afford it. I have really good people there. I don't want to name any of them because then I would have to name now the next 20 minutes some names, but we really have very good engineering culture and very good engineers, both female and male. We definitely don't care on that. So what was really expected from me, and that's what I really had to learn then switching from the CTO to the speaker role is, on the one hand side, we are a technology company, and having a technical person being the speaker there, it's a good intent. Yeah. But at the end, we are a sales organization as well, and a marketing organization, because we tended to build really good features, really profound features, and I don't want to say we forgot to mention it, but somehow it felt like that. So we spent some time on marketing and sales.
So you have to communicate all the work that your team has done.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the essential ingredients, is that I do understand what the engineers are saying, and I do understand what the engineers are building, and I'm very often in that translation phase of translating something which happened on the tech side, what that means to our customers with regards to service value, with regards to to customer value with regards to new features, new innovations and stuff like that. So that translating function is one of the cores. And the second one is I'm often talking to our main, not only to our main customers, one is to all our larger customers. And I'm still acting in the industry bodies and representing our company. So I would say on the strategy and where the edtech industry as such is heading to, I have a pretty good understanding. And translating that way the whole market is going forward into the needs we have to fulfill company-wide, that's the second important task of my daily life. So that translating the more or less the global trends into what we have to achieve on the business and on the product level. So it's 2 times the translation level, and it ends up that what people are asking for is having a clear understanding of where the market is heading to, having a clear understanding for what's the position of virtual minds. Where do we want to be and where don't we want to be? Because at the end, if you have just 2 legs, you cannot play on 3 fields. And at the end, we have a limited amount of resources. And so having that strategic picture, having a good understanding of where we're heading to, and then translating it into success. Because, like we did this year, we have independently of what happened with the market, we were really successful on the market. And that's the work of all our employees, together with the joint understanding of where the market is heading to, and then following what we have agreed on and going into that direction, and having the guardrails defined so that everyone understands the direction and has a certain level of freedom to act accordingly, and creating that playing field for our employees. It's my daily duty, and it's the daily duty of my colleagues in the management board, and it's the daily duty of the whole leadership team, because at the end it's how can we empower the employees to deliver what we have agreed on.
Right. And last time that we spoke, obviously you're very proud of Virtual Minds. You're very proud of your role with it, and you're proud of your team. You mentioned that last time, and that you're very happy to be there. And one thing that stood out that you mentioned is that something along the lines of basically you wish that more people knew about this company, because Germany should be proud to have such an organization within this country. So on this subject, I'm curious, how can other entrepreneurs build a company that they can be proud of, build a company that does, in different respects, in different industries, but achieves the same level of excellence as Virtual Minds does in your industry?
I'm really proud of it, and I do think that if you have a look at the history of Virtual Minds, it has grown up more than 20 years. Yeah. Digital service being at that age, that's amazing. Then it is the heritage is it's a German-born digital baby, and it has grown up, and it was when the company always managed to be treated equally, even by super large companies. So our customers, some of them are, 20, 30, 40 times bigger than we are, and still we act on the same level, and we accept each other, and we know the value of each other, of our customers. So sometimes we really treat our customers more like, I don't want to say colleagues, but something like that. So we have a very intensive relationship with all our customers. And on the other hand side, we have grown up by more or less by our own cash flow. So it's not a venture capital story or stuff like that. That's maybe why the story of Virtual Minds is not that well known. But managing to grow by the money you earn yourselves from zero to more than 250 people on a solid growth trajectory, and still and for the last 20 years always in competition with globally born companies, venture-backed, and earning billions of dollars, and still being there and delivering something relevant to the market. I think that's worth being copied. So, and if we...
It's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, and if we see in Germany or generally, there's always a discussion, how can you compete with the Googles and stuff like that? If you know what you do, and if you do it good, and if you do it in alignment with your market and with your customers, there can be 10 times more companies like Virtual Minds, because we have a really good engineering culture in Europe. We have really good ethical standards in order to deliver something profound. We have a very good social network and stuff like that. So there are a lot of ingredients. For sure, there's something, labor costs are definitely higher than somewhere else in the world. But if you know what you're doing, and if you deliver it right, and if you understand your customers, then there's always a reason for companies like Virtual Minds. And that's why I'm really proud.
You mentioned several times. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's when I joined Virtual Minds, it was more something like it's my next shop. If I'm looking back now for 6 years, then it was somehow logical that I ended up in a company like Virtual Minds.
A couple of times you've referred to your team of engineers, your colleagues, your coworkers. I'm curious, what's your philosophy on hiring, and how do you think about building teams, choosing the right people, and creating that culture that you spoke about within the company? So what's your philosophy on the whole hiring process, from, let's say, filling any specific position, to more the high level stuff of how to integrate them together, how to, make them communicate with each other smoothly, how to empower them to make their own decisions rather than rely on upper management to tell them what to do. So could you maybe give us some insights, just your general philosophy on hiring incredible engineers, incredible people on your team?
Yeah, I would say that's a bunch of books I've read once, and plus all the, I don't want to say vibes of my colleagues, but I'm in the lucky position that it's not only me. I have really good colleagues with me, and so what we follow is, if you think about some books like From Good to Great, there's one of the philosophies I really enjoy. It's if you know that there's really good person out there, hire that person before having a concrete job profile. Yeah. Because if there's a person which is doing something good,
that's interesting,
act accordingly with a very high level of integrity. Like I think it was Warren Buffett who once said that if you not only have to take care on if this is this person intelligent, and is this person full of energy, there's a third ingredient, which is integrity, and we take care on integrity a lot, because at the end a person can kill a team, and if a team is killed, more or less your whole system is at risk. So that the first thing is for us to find people with the right integrity level. If they don't know a certain
and how do you filter for that?
That's my HR team and the colleagues from development. That's an endless story. We are always tweaking how to balance the effort the effort being taken for hiring versus the output. And we really when there's always the first discussion, and then we more or less we sell the company a little bit, and if our HR team, the recruiting team, thinks that the person could be okay for the company, then it starts with interviews and it ends up with team interviews. So we tend to spend more time on having a look at that person fits into the team, because at the end they must fit for 9-10 hours every day. And I said, if there's so spending a lot of time on recruiting is for us crucial. We have started to work with some sourcing partners, and we have some sourcing partners we know they really deliver quite close to our approach, so they did understand our philosophy, and so we were somehow able to a little bit outsource some of that effort. But on the other hand level, we spend a lot of time on building an environment which makes it worth being with us. And by saying so, I don't mean everyone has a nice restaurant or stuff like that. It would be cool that we have most of our developers in the last years, they have remote-only contracts, so a restaurant wouldn't count. But what we have done is we've switched to kind of sociocratic, or I don't want to say holocratic model. We're really away from pure holocracy, but the idea of sociocratic models, so that you have a consented decision making. It's not a consensus. Not everyone has to agree, but there's a model how you can discuss, and that everyone can bring in his or her mind and his or her opinion on a certain topic. And with the sociocratic idea of a circle-based environment for our employees, it's the intent to have that the decision is made within the group of experts, which is not only driving that decision, but which is then which is directly involved in the decision and which takes all the consequences. So it's the intent that if something, for example, with regards to architecture or stuff like that, if a decision has to be made, it should be made by the experts, the teams who are writing the code and stuff like that. They shouldn't write a proposal to a certain group of architects, and then it must be the director development, and at the end me agreeing and acknowledging and stuff like that. No, we really try to keep the decisions close to the engineers, and we think and we hope that this acknowledging the competence of our employees and making them responsible and accountable for their decisions and allowing their decisions, we do think this is one of the key ingredients for our success, and why we can not only survive but even grow.
A lot of companies, when they get to the level that and the size that you guys are at, hundreds of people, you tend to kind of become a cog in the machine. And let's say you're a young, ambitious engineer, you're high integrity, you're very driven, you might have a lot of ideas, you want to play with new technology. A lot of times they just become complacent because they just have to fit in a certain way of doing things. Decision-making is done from the top down, where, from the boss, from whoever's in charge, basically it's a dictatorship in some way or another, right? What it sounds like to me is that you guys managed to have kind of a very decentralized way of making decisions, where, like you mentioned, sociocratic kind of way of merit-based, kind of a flat hierarchical organization structure where you let the team decide. And that's actually very similar to a couple other guests I've spoken to before, similar to you, very technical, but also on the philosophical side, on the leadership side, where basically the final stage of the interviews would be with the whole team. And if a single person on the team was off about the candidate, or they didn't want to hire, like it was basically a hell yes or a no. And there was a case where a single engineer on the team said no. And even though the candidate was exceptional, they decided not to hire that person. So it sounds to me like you managed to maintain that very progressive, forward way of thinking, despite being such a large organization. So was that intentional from the beginning, or was that something that you had to tweak and manage and learn through growing pains along the way?
When I started, Virtual Minds was a bunch of legal entities, and every legal entity had 20 to 50 employees. And it was somehow okay, because it was very founder-centric and stuff like that. But it ended up not being manageable, and with the evolution of the edtech market, we had to change, because it became more and more a platform business. And then if you have your strict legal entities, you cannot be part of that game anymore. And so over the last 3 years, we managed to go down from a bunch of entities, legal entities, to one legal entity and being responsible for all the different services. And so we had the question in mind, how can we best organize that? And we started with having more or less small copies of the legal entities within the overall entity, and then we started to merge it and make it one organization. And thanks God, my colleagues, they always had the same idea in mind, that we don't want to end up and being the guys running from one slide deck to the other and acknowledging what was written there. So we wanted, all of us, we always had the idea of giving as much freedom as possible. And so it was more or less, it was clear from the early days on, and then the model evolved over the couple of years, and it has still not ended. So, that's an ongoing journey, and we always have to balance it properly, because our shareholder is a stock traded company. At some point we have to act a little bit like a hierarchical organization in order to fulfill governance and stuff like that. On the other hand side, we try to embrace the maximum freedom, and we are in the luxury position that we got really good support from our shareholder, and they not only supported us in doing so, they even now started to build some kind of small other satellites like us within their universe. So I don't want to say we now more act like a role model, but we cooperated very closely, and we learned from each other, and they brought in their mind as well, and how we can best manage that. That was so getting that support was super useful to us. And so we ended up in a model which is giving as much freedom as possible, but still fulfilling the governance frame of a stock traded company. That's why I don't want to say it's a holacracy model, because for different reasons, like the stock trading, we cannot do it like that. And I don't know that we would have done it like that, because that's a journey. That's a journey for the organization and for every individual in there. And it was not the intent to, when we did the merge of all those entities, it was not a question of synergy with regards to freezing people. It was the question of synergies with regards to managing more with the same amount of people, and being more effective and efficient in what we're doing. Because we knew that we sometimes double work and stuff like that. So it was always the intention of getting the best out of the number of employees we have, rather than trying to release some people just because we are more efficient now. And that was always the driver in our head.
On the same topic of building teams, building organizations, and you mentioned as well that you got a lot of inspiration from books, specifically in the early days and from your previous experience. So on the topic of books and authors, could you maybe tell our audience, who is Frederick Laloux, and what ideas have you borrowed from that individual as it relates to reinventing organizations?
Yeah, Frederick Laloux, he's a great guy. I would say I've never met him in person, but I really liked his book, Reinventing Organizations. And I'm in the lucky, as I said in the beginning, I often do some lecture series with regards to innovation, and mostly innovation for technology, or innovation for engineers and stuff like that. So I do teach on technical universities and stuff like that. And I even there, I always have that discussion about what kind of models would you prefer, and what do you think are the ups and downs, or the pros and cons, if you would have to work in organizations and stuff like that. And then you learn a lot from young people, why they study or what they are aiming for, and so what I think that book Reinventing Organizations is really great for several reasons. One is he mentions real world examples from different areas, from power plants to health. So it's some kind of, I don't want to say it's a universal recipe, but if you want to, that kind of sociocratic behavior works for every kind of organization. So that's not some kind of industry specific, only the cool digital guys can do so. So it's really some kind of universal model if you want to. And the second thing is, he doesn't necessarily say that another model is bad. So, when you read his book, he's writing down what's good for this and that organization, and why did that kind of organization evolve. But it's never weighted or judged something like biased. This is a good or bad organization. And this is why I really like that book, and it ends up in giving you insights and he even writes that it's not the intent of every organization to end up in a tealed organization like he's drawing. And others, if you read other books, they say this is Tom's method, and either you follow that method or you are lost. And he has written a really great book about this could work, but only do so if you really believe in it. And it's and that's where that's where I really like that book. And then I have the chance to start to discuss it with young colleagues in the universities. It's always a super intensive discussion.
It seems like you kind of live with your feet on both sides. On one side, you have so much experience. You have started from the very beginning of the advertising business, and now you're here, 20, 25 years later. On the other side, you still have your foot in the door with the young generation. I know you mentioned that you're very grateful for the educational opportunities you had in the past. And obviously, you're giving a lot back as a university lecturer, giving speeches, giving all kinds of seminars, dealing with a lot of young people. What are some of the things that inspire you working with young people? Or what are some of the things that you feel are keeping you young, or maybe some new perspectives or ideas that you're getting from them? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, I've grown up in Austria, and Austria has a system of state universities. And so I got access to the university more or less for free. So it was, I think it was a 400 euro for the books and stuff like that every year, and for accessing the computers. So it was super cheap in comparison. And then I had that great journey with CompuServe and other companies afterwards in my own company for a couple of years. And I always knew that this, it was more or less, it was given for free from the state of Austria. And I always, it may sound a little bit maybe bizarre or stuff like that, but I always felt that I whenever I have the chance, I should give back some of the luck or I got. And so in the very early days, I started to do some kind of lecture series on information security and how to protect your computers. It was at the beginning, it was very computer related, and then I even joined the committees of universities for how education should work on and stuff like that. And even now I'm in the Munich University, at the Ludwig Maximilians University. I'm in some kind of digital advisory board role there, because at the end, it's all the talented young people out there. It's a little bit our job to give them advice and to train them for everything that is needed in the future. And I think it's more, on the one hand side, it's the mental models they need. On the other hand side, it's the actual technology. And thirdly, it's how do you treat information and how do you manage information properly for your next 20, 30, 40 years, because that's your working time. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to give advice, and we have to not use ourselves as a positive example, because maybe not everyone wants to have my job, I guess. And so, but we have to give them advice with what we have learned, how to treat the life so that it stays relevant for a person as an individual as well. And that's why I'm still doing teaching. And the interesting thing is that when you start talking to people, they know much more than you often think in the early days. And they really, if I think about what did I discuss with people 15 years ago and what do I discuss with people now on the university level, they have a very different understanding of or know-how about what they want to achieve and how their life should look like and stuff like that. And it's not my job to judge it, but it's I'm really thinking I'm in a very in a very luxury position to having the chance talking to them, and ultimately that ends up in me acting as the HR lead in my company, and then I talk to the HR people. It's again then reflecting and seeing how do we have to manage our organization so that it stays as an interesting employer for the young people. it's always some kind of back and forth. I give back my advice. I discuss with the young people about their developments and what they want to achieve and what they're heading for and stuff like that. And I have to teach them too with regards to innovation and technology and stuff like that. But then I keep on learning. So it's somehow weird because I get paid and I'm still allowed to learn. That's the first aspect. And the second aspect is whenever you do teaching, they are really demanding. So it's not, 20, 30 years ago, you have said, this is the book you have to read. And then you had a few slides and that's it. If you start discussing now, I don't want to say they are more educated, but they have a different access to information and stuff like that. So they get more and more in a very profound discussion. And today you have to have a few different models with you, and then it's more about all the differences between the models. So being in a position to educate young people on university level demands you to stay up to date. And that's, one could say that's a negative aspect somehow, because, but I really, I would still read a lot of books because I really love reading books, but without my university lecturers, I would say it would be -10 or stuff like that. But simply in order to stay accurate, to stay up to date, and to give them really actual scientific evident information, urges you to read a lot of books. And that helps my daily
So it seems like you're it seems like you're responsible, you feel responsible for imparting your wisdom on the young generation, which is amazing. But there's also kind of a positively selfish reason that you're staying up to date with everything. You're still learning. It's keeping you sharp. But I thought one thing was interesting is that you would observe these trends in universities with young people, and then you go to your HR team and you're kind of communicating what are the trends, what are their preferences, what is the lifestyle that they're aiming for. And you mentioned that a lot of your tech team is, for example, remote first, which is unheard of before COVID, especially in an organization your size, right? So it seems like it's like you said, it's a very luxurious position, but it's beneficial for the young people and it's beneficial for you as an employer of so many team members, basically.
Yep, that's definitely very beneficial to all of us, I would say, and at the end, it's as a company, we have to be attractive to young employees, and that's on the one hand side, that's being seen as an innovative brand, doing something valuable, having a purpose, which is not only written on paper, but which exists in the daily life. Then you have to have a certain level of fun as well, but on the other hand side, you have to have a good balance, because we have people with us for 10, 15 years. They have different expertise. Some are really hardcore engineers. Some are good engineers, but really excellent in teaching our technology and training our younger colleagues and stuff like that. And ultimately, it's finding the right mix and the right balance of those 200 people, so that they fit with each other, that they can combine, they can link to, and that it's still worth, even if you're 20 years with us, you should be a valuable member, and it should be worth for you being part of the social journey of Virtual Minds as well. And I think that's the trickiest path. That's always the trickiest question. How do you be attractive to young ones? And how do you stay attractive to your existing ones? And then it shouldn't be salary only.
Right,
So there are definitely companies out there paying more.
Sure. You mentioned being an attractive workplace to young people. You mentioned innovation, which is very important to attract those people specifically. So on this subject, I want to ask you about AI. We touched on that a little bit in our past conversation. And the impression I got is that you're a very rational optimist. Just like in that book, The Rational Optimist, you seem to be a very rational optimist. And you mentioned that you have a lot of hope for AI, especially in the area of privacy and sustainability goals. And one phrase that stood out to me is that you mentioned that AI is a privilege and that we need to learn to control it. So I'm wondering if you could maybe expand a little bit more for the audience on how do you picture or how do you think AI can contribute in terms of privacy and sustainability going forward?
Yeah, maybe I start by what we do with AI in general. We do all those tests. With how can we be more effective in our daily duties with regards to coding, with regards to creative work and stuff like that. But again, there comes in the ethical thinking we had in the beginning. How can we make use of AI without having without getting in an uncontrolled environment? So it's always a question: how can we make sure that the AI is doing what we expect it to do? So that's how more or less our general purpose AI thinking. And now I lost your question. Sorry.
Yeah, my question was, in an ideal world, how do you see, because you mentioned that you have hope that AI will be a positive tool for people. And the areas that you mentioned specifically where you'd like to see AI help us as humanity is in the area of privacy and sustainability goals specifically. So how do you see that play out? How can AI help us maintain our privacy in the ever-evolving digital world, but also help with sustainability?
So I don't remember. I think it was an economist who said that everyone who is somehow tackled by AI and thinks that his job is at risk is in a privileged position because this job will be boosted, and we do think the same. So whenever all the work we do, if it is somehow tackled or now getting in touch with AI, that's first of all a positive signal for us, because when we have ways to support our employees to be even more productive and doing the things which are a little bit more fun, because with AI you can even do a lot of, especially have a look at front-end coding. There's a lot of repetitive tasks, and you can simply let the AI do those repetitive tasks, and then you can concentrate really on user interface and user interaction and stuff like that. As one positive example. The second thing is with regards to sustainability and privacy. On the one hand side, first of all, AI costs a lot of CPU time, costs a lot of memory. So first of all, AI in general is generally energy extensive and not the most sustainable thing on earth. But if we can avoid repetitive tasks with the help of AI, then there should be overall a positive aspect. That's the first thing. The second thing is with privacy. We do see, for example, AI and synthetic users, so that you don't have to use real users for modeling or stuff like that. You can use synthetic users which behave really like real users, but simply there's no link between those synthetic users and real users. But still you can use them for your modeling, and you can use them for your campaign planning and stuff like that. That's for me, that's very valuable for campaigns being more privacy aware. Then you have AI for detecting fraudulent behavior, because all those patterns change, and AI it's like fraudulent behavior. It's like viruses. It's always a rat race, and we do think that with the help of machine learning and AI, we can have a more sophisticated defense line to keep our systems clean. And again, with regards to privacy, if we can, with the help of machine learning, become very accurate without having to deal with real people like Alex and Tom, but just with having a replica of the behavior and stuff like that, and then we can judge and play out on those replicas, or however you call them, and treat you and me really fully anonymous, but still do good choices. Because even if you want to be treated anonymous, maybe you don't want to get an ad for baby dolls or stuff like that, or you don't want to get an ad for
Right.
bicycles because you're a car enthusiast or stuff like that. If we can personalize your ad experience to something which is relevant to you without having the need to know you, but just having a pseudonymous or anonymous synthetic model of you, but then we can do really relevant ad decisioning for you. I think this is really beneficial, and then it keeps your privacy environment in a safe state, and that's what I really hope.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, but that's if we can manage it like that, then we get rid of a lot of data privacy questions we have today. We still can manage the need of advertisers, and we still can keep publishers having a sustainable and good business model with the help of advertising, in order to be able to deliver free or micro paid services to the customers, and so keeping the open web open with the help of AI. I think that's generally doable.
And what you're talking about, it can be extrapolated to any industry pretty much, not just advertising or ad tech specifically. And what you're talking about reminded me of two things. So the first one is, again, on the topic of boosting productivity, as you mentioned, but also on the topic of advertising. I saw this ad, and I think it was from Canva. Sorry, it wasn't from Canva. It was from Upwork or Fiverr, one of those freelance websites. And you see this image of this woman, and there's a big headline saying, AI took my job. So you're kind of shocked, right? And then you see a little subheading that says, to the next level. Go use Fiverr, go use Upwork, right? Which I thought was extremely clever use of this concept that you mentioned, that, look, people who are already into technology is just going to help them become more productive. So if we can control it in that way, it's a net positive. And the second thing in relation to privacy, that was quite interesting. So it sounds like you have a lot of information on real user behavior or user purchasing patterns, shopping patterns, whatever that is. But rather than using real users' data, you're basically creating these models of simulated user behavior, and you're using that to create models of technology. So, that's quite interesting approach to maintaining people's privacy with AI. One thing that I've seen a lot in the Web3 space, we have quite a few Web3 clients, and what they do is basically they have technology where somebody could verify, for example, that you're human. Somebody could verify that your name is Tom and that you work at this company, and that you can, you are who you say you are, or you do what you say you do. Where, for example, one person would be able to scan a QR and get this information, which is verified, let's say, on the blockchain, but it doesn't reveal your private information to that particular person. So that's the kind of more topic, the topic I'm more familiar with how people use AI for privacy reasons. But the way you mentioned it, I've never heard this done before. Is that something you guys do already?
The concept of synthetic users exists for a couple of years already, but before the advent of AI, it was a very intensive mathematical approach, and it was very cost intensive. And my hope is that so it existed as a model already, as a mathematical model, as a scientific model, but with the help of AI, it becomes now affordable. And then something, then technology reaches an interesting price point, then it can be used in very different ways. And we do think and hope that synthetic modeling can be really heavily used for any kind of cohort-like management and tracking and stuff like that. But I have to say one thing, in general, we don't know that this is Tom sitting in front of the computer, stuff like that. And we even don't want to know that this is Tom. That's right, again our data privacy thinking. We just want to have some kind of relevant portion of data, so that we know that there's someone in front of the computer who has a certain interest for something, but we don't know that this is Tom and stuff like that. So we are always acting in the pseudonym and also anonymity.
Yeah, it's a different branch of
yeah.
It's like a different branch that it's a different direction, the different angle that you're approaching the privacy issue.
Yeah.
And Tom, perhaps a couple parting words from your end. Last time we spoke, again, you seem very optimistic about the future of AI, of humanity in general, and you're especially positive on Europe. So you mentioned that obviously Europe has a very long history, and your belief is that the European culture as a whole has a good moral compass, right? It's got its heart in the right place. So what would be maybe some parting words for the audience, whether it's young entrepreneurs, whether it's anybody in technology who want to pursue AI, who want to follow this path, but who want to do it in an ethical and sustainable way? What are maybe some words of advice that you'd want to give to those people?
You know, when I'm talking to my students, I always use myself as an example. I had the chance to go for a job which was really well paid, and there was the job at CompuServe where they offered me the chance to learn, experience, and grow like crazy. And it ended up at some point that I earned money, definitely. But what really, I whenever to all young people, I always say, then you have the chance to learn, go for the learning. For sure, you have to live your life, and you have to earn a certain portion of money, but the time to really earn money comes a little bit later. First of all, you have to go through your learning experience to be a valuable member. And yes, it's definitely true. I do think that European moral compass, the history we have seen, the history we have faced within Europe, we have a very good philosophical framework. We have a very good understanding of human beings, and we have a very good social network. For sure, it costs something, and for sure, not everything is properly managed, like any kind of human system, I would say. But it's a very vivid marketplace with the European Union. We have a legal framework which supports that people go from one country to the other without too much hassle and stuff like that. So I think it's a place worth living, and it's a place worth growing as an engineer as well. There's good engineering culture in Europe. There's good engineering culture in mid-Europe and Germany, Austria, and stuff like that. You simply have to trust yourselves, and I do think that sometimes I don't want to, in no way I want to blame that American model of venture capitalized companies growing like crazy and becoming unicorns, and however you call them. But I think with companies which have grown because they deliver something good to because they really create value and stuff like that, and this is their reason to be there, and it's not only shiny paper thingy, but really customer proof and customer value. That's a very, I don't want to say European model, but a model which grows quite good in Europe, and staying to that models and having that constant growth, maybe not that rocket science growth, and maybe not that prominent being on all those social platforms, but having a solid growth, being attractive to others, so that ultimately you grow as a team, or then you grow as a small company, as a medium-sized company. There's a lot of value in, and it's really forming you as a character, and ultimately it helps forming the society of the future as well. And I think that's super important that we have examples like Virtual Minds or other companies with some kind of similar behavior in Europe, in order to have good citizenship on corporate level as well.
I think that's a good way to end there, and it sounds like there's a lot of hope for young people, and hopefully they will follow the path of their curiosity. Hopefully they will not necessarily look for the big money, but value learning, value ethics over getting paid right away, and hopefully guide us in terms of technology and morals and ethics in the right direction going forward. So Tom, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'd love to do this again. I'd love to be a visitor at one of your lectures and sit in and listen to what you have to share. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing at Virtual Minds and giving back to young people.
Yeah, thanks for having the chance talking to you. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so I've just stopped the recording.
Unwrapped Tech Leadership Journeys, Baldur Connect podcast.